Spring 2026 real estate market predictions for Los Angeles and Silicon Beach. Is this spring market going to be a strong real estate market or a slow one? If you're thinking about buying or selling in 2026, here's exactly what to expect. Hi, I'm Alicia with the agency in Beverly Hills. I specialize in Silicon Beach and Westside real estate market. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the spring 2026 real estate market predictions, in my opinion, and what's happening right now, where things are heading, and what it means for you as a buyer or seller in this current market. So spring is traditionally the busiest and most active time of the year in the real estate market, and there are a few reasons why. This is the time when more homes hit the market. Sellers who have perhaps held off during the winter months are now preparing their home to list and taking advantage of the increased buyer demand. At the same time, more buyers are actively searching. A lot of people time their move perhaps around the spring and early summer, whether it aligns with school schedules, job conditions, or simply better weather and better inventory. So naturally, we'll see more movement overall this time of year. So we'll see more showings, more open house traffic, and more transactions happening during this season. But what's important about the spring is not just the increase of activity, it's where the tone of the market usually gets set for the rest of the year. And in 2026, we're already starting to see momentum build. Buyer interest is picking up, there's more listings that start to increase on the market, and we're noticing a noticeable shift in the energy compared to the slower winter months. But at the same time, this market feels a little bit more balanced and intentional. It's active, but candidly not overly aggressive, which makes this spring market especially important because it's shaping up to be what rewards strategy, preparation, and timing more than anything else. So as we head into the spring market, we're definitely starting to see momentum build, but it's happening in a little bit more balanced and intentional way than what we've seen in the past years. So buyer activity is picking up, and a lot of that is coming from people who have perhaps been sitting on the sidelines over the past year. They've been waiting for interest rates to drop, they've been keeping an eye on pricing, and now they're starting to re-engage and move forward with their plans in regards to moving. At the same time, we're also seeing some more listings come to market. Sellers who perhaps waited throughout the winter are now choosing to list, which is typical for this time of year, candidly. But even with the increase in inventory, the inventory is not overwhelming, especially in areas like Playa Vista or the West Side, where supply tends to be relatively tight. Another big indicator is open house traffic. Compared to earlier this year, we're seeing stronger turnout. So more serious buyers are walking through and more engagement overall. Buyers aren't rushing. Another big indicator is open house traffic. Compared to earlier this year, we're seeing stronger turnout. So our more serious buyers are walking through, more engagement overall. Buyers are showing up, but they're not rushing. So I think that's a real key difference in today's market. There isn't a kind of environment where everything's flying off the shelves within a weekend, no matter the price per se. Instead, buyers are being a little bit more thoughtful. They're comparing options, paying attention to value, and making more calculated decisions. So what we're seeing right now is a market that's active, but a lot more strategic. So homes that are priced well and presented properly are moving quickly, not as quickly as compared to COVID perhaps, but we are seeing multiple offers on certain listings. But properties that are overpriced are not positioned well, for instance. They're requiring longer days on market and more price adjustments. So overall, the market is healthy. It's no longer driven by urgency alone. It's perhaps more driven by strategy and pricing and positioning. So my first prediction is buyer activity will increase. So as we head into the spring market, we're definitely starting to see momentum build. It's perhaps a more balanced and intentional way than we've seen in the past few years. Buyer activity is also picking up, and a lot of it's coming from people that perhaps have been sitting on the sidelines for the past year. They've been watching interest rates, keeping their eye on pricing, and now they're starting to re-engage and move forward with their plans in regards to moving. At the same time, we're also seeing more listings come to market. So sellers who have waited through the winter are now choosing to list, which is typical for this time of year. But even with the increase in inventory, it's still frankly not overwhelming, especially in areas like Playa Vista and the West Side where supply tends to be relatively tight. Another big indicator is open house traffic. Compared to earlier this year, we're starting to see a stronger turnout. We're seeing more serious buyers walk through and more engagement overall. So buyers are showing up, but they're not necessarily rushing. That's kind of the key different indicator in today's market. My second prediction is inventory will rise, but it's still going to be limited. So as we move into the spring market, we're definitely going to see an increase in inventory. That's normal for this seasonal pattern. More sellers tend to list their homes this time of year because buyer activity is higher, the weather is better, and generally it's the most favorable time window to sell of the year. So compared to the slower months like winter, we should expect more options to come to the market. However, this is an important part. Even with the increase in inventory, it's still expected to remain relatively low compared to the overall demand. So there's a few reasons for that. First, many homeowners are still holding on to historically low interest rates. We have a lot of sellers locked into 2 to 4% range interest rate. There's less urgency for them to sell unless there's perhaps a life event creating that decision. Second, in areas like Playa Vista and the West Side, you're dealing with a lot more geographically limited inventory. There aren't areas that can easily build more housing, for instance, or expand supply. So inventory tends to remain constrained in these neighborhoods regardless of the season. And third, demand in these lifestyle-driven communities remains consistently strong. So buyers are specifically targeting these neighborhoods such as Marina del Rey, Playa Vista, and Culver City because of the walkability, the amenities, and close proximity to work. So what ends up happening is we'll see more listings come to market, but they're not fully meeting the buyer demand. So when this happens, well-priced homes, especially those that are move-in ready, can still generate strong interest and even multiple offers. So overall, we're heading to spring market with more options compared to this past winter, but still relatively tight supply compared to the many buyers actively looking. My third prediction is pricing will be more strategic. So this is one of the biggest shifts we're seeing in today's market, and it's really important for buyers and sellers to understand. Pricing has become much more strategic. So in previous years, especially in peak markets, sellers could often price aggressively and see strong results. There was enough urgency and competition that buyers would stretch, that there's no longer the case here. So in today's market, buyers are more informed than ever, in my opinion. They're watching listings closely, comparing property and analyzing value. They know what similar homes are selling for, and they're making decisions based on data more than ever. So what we're seeing is a very clear split. Homes that are priced correctly, align with the current market, are generating strong interest. They're getting numerous showings, they're attracting serious buyers, and in many cases, they're able to move quickly and even sometimes receive multiple offers. But on the other hand, you have homes that are sitting. Some are priced too high that they're just sitting and they're getting more traffic, less showings, fewer offers, and often end up needing price reductions or to re-engage buyers. So frankly, there's less room for error now. And this is why pricing strategically is more important now than ever. It's not about pushing the price, it's about positioning the property correctly from day one in order to create momentum. Because when you price right, you create competition, and the competition is ultimately what drives the best outcome. But on the other hand, homes that are priced too high are sitting. They're getting less traffic, fewer offers, and often end up needing price reductions in order to re-engage buyers. There's frankly less room for error. And that's why pricing strategy is now more important than ever. It's not just about pushing the price, it's about positioning the property correctly from day one in order to create momentum. Because when you price right, you create momentum, and the competition is ultimately what drives the best outcome. So this isn't really a price it high and see what happens type of market anymore. So if it's priced right, it'll create demand, and that's the type of market we're in, that we realistically can't do the price it high and see what happens strategy anymore. My fourth prediction is there's going to be a strong demand for turnkey homes. Another major trend we're seeing right now is a strong preference for turnkey homes, and I expect that to continue throughout the spring market. Today's buyers are really prioritizing properties that are move-in ready. They want updated interiors, modern finishes, and homes that feel clean, polished, and complete from the moment they walk in. And that's a big part of what's driving the mindset of buyers these days. With, frankly, interest rates where they are, buyers are already stretching their affordability, that many of them don't want to take on additional projects or unexpected renovation costs. So there's a lot less appetite for fixer-upper properties and more demand for homes that feel finished and easy and move-in ready. So we're seeing buyers be a lot more selective now than before, because they're taking their time, evaluating their options. So presentation plays a much bigger role. This is where staging and marketing really come into play. Homes that are professionally staged, well lit, photographed well, thoughtfully presented online are getting significantly more attention and drawing more offers, where homes that feel outdated, cluttered, or not properly prepared are tending to struggle in this market, even if they're priced well. So today's market, it's not just about listing a home, it's about presenting one in its best possible light from day one. Because when a home feels turnkey, it creates an emotional connection with buyers. That's what drives urgency and ultimately better results. My fifth prediction, macro location will drive value more than ever. So another key trend we're noticing is becoming more important than ever is the micro location is driving value. Buyers are tending to be more intentional. They're not just buying their home, they're buying their very strategic lifestyle. So we're thinking about walkability, for instance, safety, for instance, commute times, proximity to amenities and restaurants. So what this means is not all properties will perform the same, even if they're in the same neighborhood. So homes in highly desirable micro locations will continue to sell faster at stronger list price and attract more competition, while others will take longer when they don't align with what the buyer is prioritizing in today's market. So in today's market, understanding not just the neighborhood, but the exact pocket within is critical when pricing and positioning a home. My sixth prediction is interest rates will continue to influence buyer behavior. So another factor shaping the market right now, and something that will continue throughout the spring market, is interest rates. So rates are currently hovering around the mid 6% range. So buyers are definitely approaching the market more cautiously than they did the prior years. For instance, monthly payments are higher. So naturally buyers are taking more time to evaluate their options and make educated decisions. So what's important to understand is rates are not stopping the market. They're simply changing how buyers behave. We're seeing buyers become more strategic. They're more focused on value, more selective with the property they choose, and they're more intentional about their budget. So instead of rushing into decisions, they're comparing homes more carefully, making sure they're buying something that truly fits their needs. At the same time, there's a strong underlying demand. Many buyers adjusted their expectations. They're coming to terms where rates are today, and rather than waiting forever, they're moving forward, especially if they find the right property. There's also a level of confidence in long-term real estate homeownership. Buyers understand that rates change over time, and many are entering the market now with the mindset that they can refinance later once rates improve. So what we're seeing is a market that's still very active, but definitely more thoughtful. Homes that are priced well and well presented are still attracting serious buyers, but those buyers that are making more calculated decisions than ever. So overall, interest rates are absolutely influencing behavior, but they're not slowing the market down. They're creating a more strategic and balanced environment. So what this means for buyers, if you're buying this spring, there'll be more options on the market, but competition still exists for the well-priced turnkey home. So be prepared to move quickly when the right listing comes up. So what this means for sellers, if you're selling this spring, it's still one of the best times to list, but success in this market depends on pricing correctly from the start, strong marketing, also presentation, and the market's rewarding that strategic strategy as well. So my final take, spring 2026 is shaping up to be an active, balanced, and opportunity-driven market, not overly aggressive, but still competitive in the right cities. If you're thinking about buying or selling this spring, I'd be happy to help you create a strategy tailored to your own specific goals. And please don't forget to like and subscribe for more Los Angeles real estate updates.